Om Shanti. Welcome all of you, and good mornings, good afternoons, good evenings, in whichever time zones you are. And we are so fortunate that for episode 12, we have with us Sister Jayanti. We are so privileged to have you with us, sister. Thank you so much for joining and giving us this opportunity to hear your words of wisdom on the value. And before I go ahead, I would just want to say that I didn't think of anyone else when the value humility came to me. As humble and as gentle as Jayanti's sister is, no one else is, I feel. I mean, therefore, I felt she's the best person to speak on this value. So I would just now request Brother Eric, who is the National Coordinator of the Canadian Zone of Brahma Kumaris. I would request to ask him a few words to speak. Over to you.
Greetings of love and peace to each and everyone, and very, very, very special and very warm greetings to you, dear Sister Jayanti Didi. So happy to have a role of welcoming you to Canada. And some days, I don't know if I'm missing the time when we would be at the airport waiting for you. And of course, we would have big bouquet of flowers. Our heart will be beating faster as the plane will be landing, and we'll be waiting for these angel wings to appear beyond the security barriers or desk. And then we will be seeing you arriving. We'll be smiling at you, waving, and we'll be welcoming you on Canadian grounds. But this is 2021 in a COVID time, and planes are not flying like the way they used. So we are beyond time and space, and you are not only landing in Canada with a little click of a mouse, but you're also reaching the whole world, and you're going beyond time when you're not just talking to the present, but you're talking to the future. And you're not even just talking English, you're talking Spanish, German, French, Portuguese, Arabic without knowing. So we really changed the way we are meeting, but the way to greet are always the same. So you cannot come to Canada without having special flowers. These are the very, very beautiful flowers we offered in our meditation this morning. And we offer them, they go up, but they always come back with a little note. Please give to my most beloved, dear, amazing soul, Sister Jayanti, on behalf of all the Canadian souls who are watching, listening to you. And it's a beautiful rose. And so you can just open your arms and they come. And you see? Zoom and bloom. From Zoom, they bloom into your presence. And Sister Jayanti, really, seriously, we're very happy to really create the experience that you're here with us in Canada, although, as I mentioned, you're international now with this technology. But I know I was listening to you this morning on another channel for sharing on the class we heard, and thinking of the world situation. I know your heart is very, very connected to the whole world and what's happening today. And this series is very interesting because we had Sister Shivani last week on the value of gratitude. And when we think of the situation of the world today, we know there's a need for oxygen, there's a need for money, there's a need for so much help around the world. But it's interesting when we start looking at those values that who we think that maybe we also need humility. And maybe because of a lack of humility and gratitude, we reach a point today when there is, another external manifestation of chaos. So we greet you with our heart, but very open ears. And I know you'll shed a new light on this value of humility as an essential need, something that we maybe sometimes think it's a secondary necessity. But I know for you and for us in our spiritual journey, it is a very, very big priority. So with a big open heart and lots of flowers, more than 2, there's fields of roses welcoming you to Canada. We're very, very happy to have you with us And you know how much we all love you very, very much from the bottom of our heart. So a very warm welcome and looking forward to being with you in the next hour. So greetings, Om Shanti, and welcome to Canada.
Thank you, Eric. That was a very sweet and warm welcome and a wonderful reminder of the beautiful times I've spent with all of you there. And yes, you mentioned that people might not always recognize humility as something that is needed in their lives. And the image that comes to mind is of a tree. And when you look at a tree, you forget that there have to be very deep roots. If the roots are shallow, then a storm may come, a tempest may come, and the tree will fall. But if the roots are strong, then the tree is able to grow upright and withstand all the tremors and the shocks and the storms that come. But also, the tree in its maturity is then able to give very beautiful fruits, sweet fruits that everybody can enjoy. But the roots are invisible. The tree is visible and people will appreciate the beauty and they'll even enjoy very much the fruits that the tree is giving. But not many think about the roots and how deep those roots need to be. And so for me, humility is that quality which is deep, going deeper and deeper inside the self, so that I'm able to create a state of stability within my own inner world, a stability that external circumstances aren't able to shake. Then the tree of virtues or values that emerges from that seed and those roots are very beautiful, and they can be enjoyed by many, many. It's one person's work to plant the seed and the roots, for the fruits are enjoyed by everyone. That's not one individual who did the planting. The work was done by one, but the fruits are enjoyed by many, many others. And so what is it about humility that needs such careful attention? And especially during the early days of plantation, we need to just make sure that it's there consistently.
And before we do that, Sister Jayanti, may I invite us all, because I already brought you into the blooming state of the tree. And before we go into the roots, I think there was also Dr. Ashok Mehta who would love to greet you also and send you some regards and welcome. So just before, because I already launched you on the field of humility, but I know there was another special welcome for you this morning.
Om Shanti Jayanti.
Om Shanti.
Welcome to Bab Dada's sparkling star, the Ruhe Gulab. I have seen you right from the time I came in Yagya, almost more than 30 years back. And you, as a matter of fact, you symbolize a classical Brahma Kumaris sister. Simplicity, humility, sweetness, introvertness, and full of joy on your face. I always thought of you as a great leader in those years. I've seen you grow much, much wider, much in international forums, whether it is United Nations in Geneva or whether it is in International Davos World Economic Forum or in the Westminster, sometime taking us for the Jayanti Foundation meeting, or I've seen you in environmental international conferences. I always thought of you as one of the finest speakers, the writers, the thinkers, and symbolizing what is the best amongst all of us in the Brahma Kumaris. I hope that a leader like you, who has been instrumental in taking the Brahma Kumaris work across the world, when you invited Dadi, your parents invited Dadi in mid-70s, and you her right hand, or I would say you were a shadow of the Dadi. Whether initially translating for her, and Dadi, and you started your work in a very small place. And from there, you have widened to I think, tree which has multiple roots all over the world. I always thought of you as not only Dadi's shadow, but Dadi's right hand. All that work that you did together. Dadi did not speak English initially, and you would talk and she would give the drashti and the vibrations. That's such a beautiful combination of two of you. And you also symbolize the Eastern and the Western civilization together. You speak so beautifully in Hindi as well as in English. I think we're very fortunate to have you talk about humility. I think you're personification of humility. Om Shanti, and thank you.
You're being very kind and generous, Dr. Mehta. And it's been a real honor and privilege to have known you through these years. And of course, your connection with Dadi Gulzar is something that's imprinted in our hearts. And so now that Dadi has ascended, I know that your role is even more important to be able to share your experiences of who was Dadi, who is Dadi, and what she does today, and what you have taken from Baba. So thank you.
So thank you, both of you, Brother Eric and Dr. Ashok Mehta. And Jayanti sister, before we go on to the talk, I would just do a little bit of housekeeping and a formal introduction. Sister Jayanti doesn't need any introduction. Her face is speaking about what she's all about. But as an anchor, I feel all of you know very well that it was the 1969, the first teachers training program after Brahma Baba ascended, and she was one of those teachers from that group, and it's been more than 50 years now she's serving the Brahma Kumaris. And a few other things which I have noticed. I came into contact with Sister Jayanti 5-6 years ago in 2015 July, and I would share with you all this. I'll take a minute more for that, so apologies if I'm taking the time. But I remember we were supposed to go somewhere for service, and I was the brother and there were 4 other sisters. And it was so amazing, like so humbly, Sister Jayanti said, please you sit in the front seat, and she was in the back seat with the others. So I mean, she symbolizes, as Dr. Ashok Mehta said, she's an epitome of humility. And a few others, because we have a few people who don't know about the brief biography of Sister Jayanti. I'll just cover a few things. She's currently the European coordinator, as well as coordinates the activities of the Middle East of the Brahma Kumaris. And her work has been involved in one way that she's got this unique ability to impart deep spiritual truths with the utmost clarity. I mean, she speaks so gently and softly, but very deeply on the topic. I'm sure all of you would really listen to that today. And she actually has been an advisor to the Council for World Religions Parliament, and also the advisory committee member of the International Interfaith Center. She's done a lot of talks for the interfaith centers. And a unique thing about Sister Jayanti, as Dr. Ashok Mehta already pointed out, she has worked tirelessly to promote the positive human and spiritual values to all the sectors of the society. And in 1980, she was appointed as the university's Brahma Kumari's main representative to the United Nations in Geneva. And one more thing which I would want to not forget about her is she has this extensive ability to be so gentle and so kind. And if you look at her, you feel you're in the flying stage. So she was given this title of Flying Angel by Avyak Babdada herself, and we all experienced that. So with this introduction, I would just now give a few brief housekeeping instructions for the people who have joined from different parts of the world. I'll just share my screen so that you all can come to know what I'm trying to say. It's about the interpretations. So this slide tells you in short about, it's very simple. If you can click on the interpretation button, and we have interpretations in all the languages which are mentioned, And for example, if you choose Arabic, you have to basically make sure that you mute your original audio, because otherwise you'll be listening the English version, and click on the Arabic, for example, if you want to hear Arabic. So these are the few housekeeping instructions, and you all are welcome to ask your questions, but not right now. Say around by 8:50, or 45 minutes beyond the talk. Sorry, I'm saying the Indian time, but by around 9 p.m. Indian time, if you can just send the questions to me. And also people who have questions in different languages, you all can please feel free to ask in those languages, and the interpreters will be translating them in English and send it back to me. So with these few instructions, I stop the sharing, and over to Sister Jayanti for the talk. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. So it feels like the first part was a little bit of a trailer, just a little introduction to the whole subject of humility, and that image of the humility being deep and underground and quiet, and the tree being very tall and strong, but also able to be flexible enough to bend with the wind so that it doesn't break and fall. And the fruits of contentment, of joy, of happiness, all of these things come as a result of the roots of the tree being strong and deep. And so what would be the condition if we were to look at the opposite of humility? And my experience and my understanding is that on the one side is humility, and on the other side is ego. And when there's ego, then the tree that comes from those roots of ego is not so strong. It can't withstand the winds that can come. And in every human being's life, especially at this moment in history, there are unexpected situations and events that create quite a turmoil. And if the roots are of ego, then I'm going to break at that moment. I'm going to feel very unhappy, very distressed, a lot of pain. And that's not going to allow me to be able to serve anyone. The tree that comes from ego doesn't offer shade and comfort to others. Humility, and the tree is fresh and blooming and widespread, and so it offers shade in the heat, it offers coolness when there's a need for that, but also it offers the fruits, and the tree of ego doesn't have any fruits, and so there's nothing that I can offer others. And so the contrast is day and night, absolutely opposites. But the thing is that we don't recognize the value of humility, and we don't recognize the danger of ego. And on the path of spirituality, we begin to understand that the cause of all my sorrow and all my weaknesses and defects is actually this one thing, ego. For example, I'm sure that all of us have, to a certain extent, this quality of control. We want things to go as we want them to be. And if we're not in control and things go a little bit differently to the direction that we would like, then in that condition we get upset. But humility means I'm not controlling. I'm not a control freak, but also control issues. And then there's also the connection with bossiness. I order and you obey. And if you don't obey, then I don't get on with you. It's my way or the highway. I'm not able to compromise. I'm not able to be flexible. And in humility, there's respect, there's love, there's a recognition of the value of the other. And as a result of that, there's collaboration, there's going to be cooperation. And so amazing things can happen. In control issues, I take a lot of sorrow and a lot of pain because it's impossible to control everyone. I can't even manage to control myself. My thoughts go here and there. I'm not managing to control my feelings. I'm not able to do all the things I would like to do in my life. And so, how far-fetched is the possibility that I can control another? And sometimes we're trying to control not just one other person, but several other people, so that everybody can follow what I say is right. And it may not be right. Many, many times examples have shown us that when something is ego-based and one person is in charge, then that dictatorship attitude actually means that the ship goes in a different direction than was intended. And so the destination that we hope to arrive at isn't possible. And so a lot of examples about how ego actually takes us away from our destination rather than brings us closer to our destination. So, but the problem, it's difficult to recognize ego because it's become so much a part of my identity that I can't separate myself from me and my ego. My ego has become my shadow. And so it's there with me all the time, until I make the conscious effort to change the situation. And in spiritual language, we use the term soul consciousness. And what that means is that instead of identifying with my physical form, I identify with my spiritual identity, which I recognize to be the soul. The physical form is what I can see, but that's not telling you anything about who I truly am. You know how we judge people by the color of their skin. We see somebody in a black costume and certain images run through our mind. We see someone in an Oriental, Asian costume, and again, there are certain conceptions, preconceptions that we already have. White skin, brown skin, whatever it is. But our judgment and our conditioning is such that everything is based on the external. And of course, we make many mistakes as a result of this, because every single human being on the one side is the same. And on the other side, every single human being is absolutely unique. We're all the same in terms of size, in terms of appearance. And I'm not talking about this, because this you see all sorts of images, different types of faces, different types of expressions, different colors, different everything. But that's just the external. But in the spiritual understanding of who I am, when I go deeper than the skin, I go deeper and deeper within myself, I am a shining point of light. And so are you, and you, and you, and you. Every single individual is the same in terms of appearance of the soul, but is also same in terms of characteristics. We all share the same love, the peace, the truth, the purity, the joy in our eternal form. And then through our journey here in life, things change, things become different. My experiences are different to yours. My relationships are different. And all of these things shape my personality. And so today, I probably have a lot less love than when I started my journey, because I've gone through different experiences in which I've been betrayed. There's been injustice against me. There's been challenges that have been not of my making. So all of these things have shaped me and molded me and made me as I am today. So our level of joy is very different. Our level of purity is different. Our level of understanding of truth is very different. So every soul absolutely unique. And in this awareness of being a soul, I learned to go deep inside, and what I'm connecting with are the original qualities and values that lie within the self. You've already had a whole series of 11 talks on different values, and there's plenty more waiting for you to come. So how many values are there? I remember that Jayanti telling me that at one point, way back in the 50s, when she was reflecting on the subject of values, she said, I came back each morning to the class and we added to the list of the values that we were thinking about. And so she said we came up with a list of over 300 different values and virtues. And we then decided, well, it's too long. Who's going to remember how many virtues I have, how many values I have if it's in hundreds? But let's see if we can condense it, compress it. And they did. And they then came up with a list of a dozen different values. And she said, it's not even just a dozen, but actually you can condense it further and bring it back to the 5 original values of the inner being. And all other qualities stem from these 5 original ones. Just as if you have an artist's palette, there are the 4 primary colors, mix and match, and you get a whole rainbow of colors. Same thing, 5 original qualities of the self, and then multiply them with all the others with each other, and you can get to a list of 12, or you can get to a list of 100 or 300 even. The more detail you want, the more is available. But looking at the essence, the contrast between humility and ego is the contrast between self-awareness, soul consciousness, and then body consciousness. Body consciousness, well, my whole life, my whole existence has been connected with the body. Everything is to do with the body. My earning of my livelihood, my connections with other people, the income that I earn, whatever it is I'm doing, the accumulation of property, all of these things are things I identify with when I'm in the limited consciousness of the physical. And when, if my good fortune, or rather my effort through the years to find truth, brings me to the point where now I understand that I have to go on an inner journey, then my good fortune and my efforts of the past allow me to go deeper and deeper within myself. And I can actually come to that awareness of this inner being of light that I am, this infinitesimal spark of light. And the more I maintain this consciousness of being the soul, the master, the sovereign over these physical senses, to whatever extent I'm able to travel inwards deeply and maintain this awareness as I speak, as I look, as I do the things I need to do that are part of life, but keeping this awareness that it's not this that is speaking, the soul is speaking. It's not these eyes that are seeing, they're the camera. They capture the image, but who interprets what this image is about? It's the soul within. And so maintaining that awareness of the soul sounds very easy. And it is very easy. It's not difficult at all. But somehow, because of a habit that we've acquired over a period of time of consciousness connecting with physical, we forget to make the effort to create that consciousness of the inner being that I am and come to the awareness of the soul that I am. And something quite remarkable happens when I connect with the soul. I recognize my own original qualities and values. And that gives me a very strong foundation of self-esteem, valuing myself, being able to respect myself, and even further on, being able to love myself. Is this important? Absolutely it is. Because whatever is my relationship with myself within, that is how I treat people out there also. And without this practice of going deep inside and connecting with my own unique qualities, I'm not going to be able to develop that firm, stable awareness of my own inner dignity and self-respect. And when there's a lack of self-respect, do you know what happens? Look back and you'll be able to explore it, and you'll see that then I'm not able to give respect to others around me. Externally, we would say that it's ego that's causing the lack of self-respect. And also it's ego that's causing the lack of respectful relationships with others. And on a spiritual level, we would say, well, the ego is there because there's body consciousness. Push the button of the soul here and come back to that state of soul awareness, soul consciousness. And in this state of soul consciousness, yes, then there's self-esteem. Developing this inner awareness of who I am and that inner state of self-esteem removes any inferiority complex that I may have or superiority complex. You know, when somebody is behaving in a bossy, controlling way, and you say, well, what is the cause of this? It's actually insecurity. They are afraid that others will put them down. They don't want to give others that opportunity. They're scared. They're very insecure. And so the external, very aggressive image comes out of control and bossiness. But deep down inside, it's actually fear and insecurity that's causing them to behave in that way. And yet when there's soul consciousness, then that self-respect means that there's an inner dignity in which there's no problem about expressing respect and giving others dignity. It'll never be that one who has humility is needing respect or wanting respect. The other side, yes, of course, when there's ego, I demand respect from others. And if I don't get it, I get very upset. I get very hurt and sorrowful. And so on the one side, you know, it looks as if there's this big image of the boss, but there's a depth of insecurity in which they're very needy. They want, they need. And the law of nature is that if I ask for respect, if I'm demanding respect, is it going to come to me? Very unlikely. It's going to run away. Because respect can only be given if it's been received. If I'm able to give respect, then I'm able to receive it also. And so if I've taken that first step of giving respect to others, and it's natural, it's easy, it's not any lowering of my self-esteem to do that, but it's a natural expression of my self-esteem that I will do that. And so the paradox is that the greatness of an individual is seen not by the external persona of the big boss, but rather the humility that that individual has. Many of those who are on this program would remember our senior daddies, and in particular 3 of them I'm going to mention because many of you do know them. And others who don't know them, well, there's a lot of material now available on YouTube, on all the different channels in which you can catch a glimpse of them, which is different to seeing them in real life. But according to destiny, they've transitioned and ascended to a higher plane, and so they're not around in the physical form at this moment. But I'm thinking about Dadi Prakashmani, and when she walked into a room, she commanded instantly, without saying a word, the respect of everyone in that room. Everybody wanted to stand up and greet her as she entered. And she would enter with a very gentle smile. And she would ask everyone to be seated, and she would address them as her brothers and sisters. She was the head of the organization from 1969 all the way through till 2007. And the work she did was incredible, really, really an amazing story. But her humility, she would treat everybody as an equal. She would never consider herself to be senior most or higher than anyone else. She would smile and reach out to each individual and say, "You're my sister, you're my brother." So on the one side, the spiritual authority of an empress. A newspaper reporter from one of the Western dailies in London, The Guardian, this is way back around 1974, 75. He was stationed in Delhi at that time, and somehow he turned up at Mount Abu, probably just as a tourist, because he'd come with his family. But he stumbled across the Brahma Kumaris, and he came and spent a couple of days with us and met Dadi Prakashmani. And he wrote about her in an article that was printed in The Guardian at that time. And in that he said, when you see Dadi Prakashmani, you know that you're in the regal presence of an empress. And yet she's very simple. She's wearing only white clothes. She has no possessions to her name. And yet the spiritual authority she radiates is massive. Now, here's a Western journalist who really knows very little about spirituality, but that's his impression of Dadiji. Total simplicity, total humility. Dadi's humility would be displayed in many, many different ways, but one particular way I'll describe. After morning class, and she would conduct morning class with charisma and joy and carry all of us into that spirit of being in the presence of the divine. And afterwards, morning class would be over, and she would walk down the stairs of the auditorium, Om Shanti Bhavan, and she would sit in the courtyard in the sun. They were normally there during winter time. So the winter sun in the morning is very refreshing, very warm. And she would sit there, and she would be available for anyone and everyone who wanted to meet with her, whether just to say, "Hello, Dadi," "Good morning, Dadi," or whether it was some business. And if it was some business, she would say, "Sit down, wait, I'll get to you." And she didn't speak much English, but she knew how to communicate through her eyes, through her vibrations. And so that's what she did, just made herself available to even people who had been practicing meditation just a few months. And so that humility, that gentleness, but yet that spiritual authority, where did it come from? Dadi's own inner sense of self-esteem and dignity was constant, consistent. It never ever left her. I can't remember a single situation, and not only did I meet Dadi in Madhuban, in Mount Abu, but I had the amazing fortune of traveling with her to many, many different countries, including Canada, but across the world. And she would be meeting high-level people, she would be meeting simple, ordinary people, and that inner dignity and the respect with which she greeted everyone, even children, was very beautiful to observe and very easy to imbibe being in her company. And I'm giving you the detail of one particular individual, but certainly all the three Dadis, Dadi Gulzar, Dadi Janki, the same awareness, the connection with the self. We try to connect with everybody outside, and yes, that's important. But until I've connected with myself, there's not going to be much value in trying to connect with others. Rather, there's going to be all sorts of misunderstandings. How often have you had the experience that you try to connect and then things don't go as you would like them? And then somebody makes a comment, but there was a misunderstanding. Well, if my starting point is that I understand myself, I know what's going on within me, then my mind is more stable, more clear, and I'm more likely to understand what it is you are trying to communicate to me. How often have people said to you, "Oh, but you didn't understand what I was trying to say." Or maybe you said that to other people. "You know, I'm trying to explain to you, but you're not understanding." But I think that the foundation of communication is to know myself and have that clarity and understanding of who I am. So on the one side, I'm connecting with my own original virtues. But on the other side, I'm also seeing those same qualities given by the Creator to each and every one of you. Where did these qualities come from? The divine, the supreme, whatever term you would like to use, is the source of all positive attributes. And so when in my mind, I set aside the consciousness of other things, I come to my spiritual identity, and then I connect with the divine, I'm able to draw those qualities from the divine within my own being. There's no reduction in the qualities that God has. 100,000 people can connect and draw from the one source. But the source is never depleted because the source is the infinite ocean. God has been remembered as the infinite ocean of all attributes. And so in the awareness of the soul, I'm connecting with my own original identity, and I'm stable in that consciousness. And I see you in that awareness of your own original qualities, stable in your dignity, and I'm able to give you respect. And even if the other individual doesn't have recognition of themselves, doesn't have that connection with their own original qualities, it's okay. Because the fact that I am seeing the other with that vision of respect, in the view of their original qualities, even though they're not aware of them, something begins to stir in the other individual. And they begin to feel not just a sense of peace, but they also become aware of something higher that's emerging within their own consciousness. And so they take it further to find out more. And so that state in which there's an awakening that can happen in another happens through my state of soul consciousness and that inner state of self-respect and dignity. We use this expression inside out, which means that when inside I'm comfortable with myself, I'm content with myself, then when I look out into the world and develop relationships with others around me, I'm going to be sharing that contentment with others, that satisfaction with others. If I haven't done this inner work of going deep inside and creating this fullness in which I have all those attributes that God has blessed us all with, I'm able to emerge those attributes in my awareness and I express them in my life, in my behavior, then others are receiving the fruit of the work I have done on my state of humility. So humility is absolutely the foundation of a yogi way of life, of a spiritual life. And so let me be able to go deeper and deeper and create that state of inner stability in which my humility is not impacted whether there's praise or defamation, because both will come together, of course. And when there's praise, if I accept it on a subtle level inside and I say, oh yes, but I am like that, aren't I? So if they say it, no problem, it's okay. So I'm accepting that praise. Well, the problem with that is that today there's praise, tomorrow it's very likely that there won't be praise, there'll be defamation. Someone, something happened sometime, whenever it did, and now that's being highlighted. And that is what I'm being confronted with. And there's defamation. If I accepted the praise, for sure, I have to accept the defamation too. But rather than that, when there's praise, let me be very aware that without my spiritual development, there would have been nothing to praise. So my gratitude is to God, that God has given me this capacity and this strength to come this far. And so it's God whose name should be praised rather than mine. And when there's defamation, at that moment, that inner state of detachment, soul consciousness, in which I'm not emotionally involved, in which my feelings are not hurt, then in that state, having heard the defamation, I will ask myself the question, what more do I need to give attention to so that this misrepresentation or whatever it may be doesn't happen again? But also a checking to see, well, they're saying that this is wrong. There must be some fire that's causing the smoke. Otherwise, where would the smoke be coming from? There must be something that's not quite right. So let me take it as a stimulus to be able to go exploring even further, even deeper, and remove whatever other factors there may be. And so humility is able to have a state of equanimity and balance, praise or defamation, appreciation or disrespect. It's okay. I have the capacity to deal with it and absorb it all and carry on further. And so in the state of body consciousness, ego, a little bit of criticism comes my way and there's a huge reaction. Why do they say this? They shouldn't have said this. This is injustice. It's not right. It shouldn't be like this. Hey, hold on. They've said it. I don't have to take it all on board. Mahatma Gandhi had said, Buddha had said, when somebody had come and was defaming him, and Buddha remained very calm And the man finally went away. So his followers said, "But Master, why didn't you reply to him? Because all the things he was saying were untrue." And the Master replied, "If somebody tries to give you something and you don't accept it, who does it stay with?" And so in cases of defamation, they do what they want to do, what they need to do. But do I accept it? Or do I simply take it as a checkpoint, but further know that that's not me, that's something else that's impacting them, not me. And so my inner state of stability isn't shaken. And so humility means to be able to maintain that poise, which means my yoga with God remains strong. When I go through the roller coaster of emotions, 1 minute here, the next minute there, I get shaken by everything. My yoga with that highest being, the Supreme, isn't stable because my state has been impacted. And on this roller coaster, I know that God is there, but I'm not the master of my mind because my mind has been really impacted by whatever I've heard. And in that state where my mind is not stable, I'm not making the right connection, I'm not able to draw the power that I need to be able to move on and go further. And so the cause of the problem came because I wasn't soul conscious. The solution to the problem comes when I practice soul consciousness and connect with the divine and draw that power and strength from the divine. So I'm seeing humility as being faith in the self, very important, but also faith in God. In humility, there's a very deep awareness of the presence of God. In ego, there's just the consciousness of I, no one else at all. It's just I and me and I and me. That's it. But in humility, there's the presence of God being experienced at all times. And so that awareness of that sacred power that is available for me, and the knowledge that God is the almighty authority, and whatever needs to happen, I just have to be in the right place at the right time. And in a very natural and easy way, things will change and things will turn out to be as God would want them to be, as I would want them to be. And so humility means having that faith that God is in charge, but also recognizing that if there's a situation in which there's success, well, can I say, that's me? Or can I say, without God, it could not have happened. I, on my own, couldn't have made it happen. And the whole story of the Brahma Kumaris is actually quite an incredible story in every country, not just in India, Bharat, but also every country outside India. How the center started, how the centers grew, how the countries were established in terms of the Raj Yoga facilities. It's a whole amazing kaleidoscope of stories that would take many, many more hours to relate. But enough to say that whenever there's a gathering, that gathering is usually multicultural, multiracial, multi-everything, multi-religious. So how did all this happen? Within the space of 40 years, Dadi Janki, when she came to London in 1974, she came with a basket full of mangoes. She had a few saris and a few clothes, but that was it. The rest of her luggage was mangoes, because we came in the month of April, and at that time it was mango season in India. This is 1974. And the instruction that we'd been given was carry mangoes for the family there. And so we did that. And without any other resources, she was able to somehow be the instrument that led to the creation of centers in 120 countries in 40 years. There's not many multinationals that can do the same. And they have many resources behind them. Dadi had one, the one above, the Almighty. And it was with that faith that she did everything, but with total humility. At no point did she ever have the thought that I have done this. She would always use the word Baba, Father. Baba did this. Baba made it happen. Baba touched their intellect and they came forward to support. So in her mind and in her language, always, that it's the one above who is doing all of this. And where my ego gets in the way, I say, yes, of course, I did all of this. And so there should be that recognition, there should be that reward. That's part of honesty. How come they're not recognizing that? And that ego prevents me from being a further instrument for God. Because God is the one who has total humility, is completely egoless. And so I, as his child, have to strive to be the same so that he can work through me. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to do it. So humility means that I can be God's instrument, and humility means that God will give me opportunity, time and again, to be his instrument, and so to work in sync with God. This is the beauty of humility and the wonder of humility, and we see the results of humility in this way. Let me stop and see how you want to proceed further. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much, Sister Jayanti. We were feeling that it should go on and on. Many questions have popped up, but beautiful correlation which you said, that the last thing which you said is humility makes me an easy instrument for God, because God can then use me easily. But if I'm full of ego, it prevents me from that. And you rightly mentioned that humility is the basic foundation of a yogi life. Unless we are humble, we are not really true yogis in that way. So beautiful explanation which you mentioned. Quite a few questions. The first one being, what is the, people say there's a thin line between self-esteem and ego. So what is this thin line? And please clarify on that.
It is a very thin line. And the way to be able to discern it for the self is, am I soul conscious? Is my awareness stable in the awareness of the inner being? And in that, there's self-esteem, in which nobody can squash me, nobody can put me down. And even if they try, I'm able to keep smiling. And of course, ego is that there's the awareness of the body consciousness. And in that state of body consciousness, I'm very sensitive, ultra sensitive, and somebody says something a little bit out of place and I get hurt, though they didn't mean it in that way, but my own ego gets bruised. And so it is a very, very fine line. But on one side is the soul, and on the other side is the awareness of the body.
Beautiful. You said ultra sensitive. Another question pops up here in the question box. They're saying, when I get upset, people do mistakes and I really get upset. Is being upset also a form of ego?
Absolutely. Yes, it is. Because I have to just have a big heart and an open heart and know that mistakes will happen by everyone and anyone, myself included. And so if this person's made a mistake, they're already feeling nervous and upset. And my anger or my reaction to them is going to make them even more upset. And we're not going to be able to find a solution. They made a mistake. and I stay calm, stable, in that introverted state of soul consciousness, then I say to them, it's okay. It happens to all of us. Let's see what went wrong. And probably together we'll find a solution that we can put into motion and correct that mistake very fast. Otherwise, the reaction that I have, why did you do this? You shouldn't have done this. It's always your fault. Then, of course, we are blinded. I'm blinded by my ego, and the other poor person is blinded because of the confusion that has come because of their mistake. So that spirit of humility within will make sure that I don't get upset, I don't cause them any further grief and upset, and together there's a solution that we arrive at.
Beautiful way of explaining that. Other thing is, a brother is asking that when we are very humble with people, sometimes they take undue advantage of us and they treat us like a doormat. They trample on our self-esteem. So how do we deal with such people?
I have to be stable in my own self-esteem. Nobody else can take that away from me. There's a beautiful song, and I don't remember the rest of the lyrics, but one of the statements in the lyrics is, no one can take my dignity away from me. They can try, and if I let myself get trampled on and be treated as a doormat and I'm subservient to them, that means I have a certain dependency on them. There's something that I want from them, and that's making me subservient to them. In the state of my own self-esteem, I want nothing from them, nothing at all. I'm happy to interact with them as equals. I'm happy to share something with them, but there's nothing that I need or want from them. And my dignity will say, enough is enough. If this is going to carry on like this, I don't want to be a part of it. And so self-esteem will say, enough, full stop. And a doormat means I say, well, what can I do? You know, they're the boss, so they're in charge. So I suppose I have to listen to them. And I forget about my own inner authority and power. And the reality is that if I can experience that inner power, and also the power that comes from above, that comes from God, then I hold my space with dignity. And I say to them, we should talk about this so that things can improve for the future. And if they refuse to talk about it, do I have the courage and the integrity to say, well, I want nothing more to do with them? It's not easy, but if I want to reach that highest destination of my perfect state, which is what the aim of Raj Yoga is, then there's a little bit of effort necessary. And this is one of those efforts.
Right. As the boss of an organization, should I demand respect or command respect?
Anything that you demand is going to backfire and it'll go the other way. Real life story. Here's a person who was the head of 52 different companies. And when he would walk into his office, people would shake, you know, who's going to be the target today? What's he going to say to us today? And so when he traveled, they were much happier that he wasn't around, that he was gone. And then he came to Raj Yoga and very quickly went through some very deep transformation. And after that, he'd enter the office smiling and he'd acknowledge every single person who he would meet on his way in, going up in the lift, and then going to his office. And now he created an atmosphere of comfort, of well-being, of security. And people would come to him to seek his advice. Earlier, they would say, well, do I have to go to the boss? can't you just do this for me? You're my line manager. I don't need to go to the boss. And so they would avoid it. They didn't want to meet him face to face. And now, when he'd come back from travels, people would welcome him warmly. And they'd be a little bit sad when he was leaving for his travels. So here's a question for the boss. Are people happier when you arrive, or are people happier when you leave?
Perfect answer. So another question, people are listening to you very attentively because you mentioned about the essence of the values, the 5 core values we have. So they're saying, can you please tell us those 5 core values which we have?
The first is peace, and the next is love, and then there's truth, then there's purity and happiness. These are the intrinsic values of the soul that every single soul has, which is why when I'm connected with these values and I see you in that same awareness as you, the eternal soul, then it's helping you connect with your internal values also.
Right, thank you. When people criticize me, can I be humble towards them?
That's the time that comes to test you. If they're praising you, that's no test. But it's when they criticize you that then at that moment, you listen attentively and then you say, thank you, I'll give it my attention. And then afterwards, you explore it and ask yourself, well, where is this coming from? If there's smoke, there must be a fire somewhere. So, what is it within me that's making it happen in this way, that they're not able to accept whatever, or rather that they're being critical? And so, what do I need to do to change myself? So, criticism comes as a signal knocking on the door to tell me, wake up, have a check, have a look.
Right. So brother is asking that you mentioned about the 3 Dadis, Trimurti, Dadi Prakashmani, Dadi Janki and Dadi Gulzar. And also he's mentioning about Brahma Baba, who was very, very humble. He kept all the children all the time in the front and he was in the backyard, sort of the backbone, sorry. So the brother is asking that he was very, very humble and the kings used to bow down to him, the kings of Nepal and even the kings of Udaipur. So can you please share some personal experiences of your life with Brahma Baba, whatever time you spent with him?
I was a very young child when I first met him. And so that image is just of a father whose personality was charismatic and very beautiful and loving. And then I met him again when I was 16. And at that time, again, a beautiful person and one who was able to look into my eyes and tell me what my future is. I didn't even know I wanted to study Raj Yoga. I'd just gone on holiday with my mother, just 16. And yet Baba gave such love, such attention that my attention was drawn to God. And in that year, Baba would spend a lot of time with us, playing badminton in the mornings, having lunch with us in the afternoon, and in the evening, again, a little board game. Because it was monsoon times and there was only the group of about 8 of us that had come from Pune, where my grandmother stayed. So I'd come with Dadi Janki there. So that time I saw a very loving person who was absolutely ready and available to give time to a 16-year-old girl who had no idea of Raj Yoga, and a younger brother who was at that point, I think, about 12 years old, and again, scarcely knew Hindi, but yet Baba gave us his time. Now, that is incredible. You know, here's a man who already had established around 490 plus centers and had already an army of hundreds of teachers. And so why should he give his time to 2 young people? But he did. He was fine. He was available. And then later, when I was 17, I again went to Abu, and that was 1967. And then again, I went to Abu in 1968. Now, this was a time when I knew Baba as the instrument of the one who is above, using this instrument to share God's teachings. And Baba's humility at that time also. Again, Baba sitting, giving us a lot of time, finding out what my intentions were, what is it that I was planning, why did I want to surrender. Baba never looked at the clock and said, okay, let's finish. But Baba was just available. And so Baba gave infinite time, infinite love. And I then came back again. In 1968, I met Baba in June. Then I had to go to Pune to settle a few things. Then I came back in October 68. Then I went to Agra with Didi Manmoini, and Baba sent me with her. And then when I came back as a teacher. And Baba was so happy that I'd been well settled, that my time was used in a good way. So Baba, on the one side, the one who was overseeing everything, but on the other side, attention to a young person. I was by then 19. And so what was Baba seeing? Why did Baba give so much time and attention? Baba's humility and Baba's love. Both of those qualities were very visible.
The time is running out, but we'll take a few more questions. They say that in the corporate world, we are taught to say no for something which we can't do. So does that mean that I am being not humble towards them?
I have to evaluate my own capacity. And if I'm saying yes at the expense of my own sanity, then that's not sensible. Let me say no to that. And I say this because I know that the corporative world is very, very competitive today. And the demands of employers are huge. And there's all sorts of subtle blackmail and emotional threats. Maybe I lose my job if I don't say yes. Maybe I won't get my bonus if I say no. All these things are at play in my mind. But let me see, can I manage myself well if I give the extra time that is needed for whatever is the task that is at hand? And if I can manage, well, there's no harm in saying yes. But if I know I won't be able to manage very well, it's better to be open and honest and say, I think it will be not so useful for my progress or for the work that I'm doing for you in this company. And so I'm sorry, but I have to say yes. I think the problem comes with reactivity. I'm asked to do something and I react and I say, no, I'm not going to do it. Now that's bad manners and it's not a yogi way to behave. But if I'm asked to do something and I reflect on it, I think about it, and then I explain whatever I need to explain as to why I'm saying yes or no. Let me have that clarity, thinking it through for myself. Then if I'm explaining very simply, respectfully, logically, the other will surely accept it.
I'll just take this last question because it's a lengthy one. I'll just read it out for you. The brother is saying, I'm able to stay calm during situations of praise and happiness without getting excited. So he's fine when people are praising him without being excited. But when it comes to criticism or accusations, though I am able to stabilize myself, but initially there is a kind of setback. So he's saying he's not able to deal with criticism. So how do I develop this equanimity or balance, which you mentioned in the talk?
I have to recognize that I'm not perfect. And so there are flaws that I have to sort out. There are defects and weaknesses. And so if somebody is critical, can I take it as a test paper for myself from which I can learn more? So, for example, they're saying that I don't think I have control issues, but they're saying that I am too controlling. Okay, let me take time and reflect on it and see, are there situations in which my behavior could have led to the rise of these particular ideas that I'm not flexible, etc., etc. And if I can identify anything, that's great. Then let me sort it out and put it right. But sometimes I hear criticism and I can't identify it with myself. At that moment, speak to a friend you trust, a spiritual friend. Because if you say to them, this is the attack against me, maybe they know that individual and they'll be able to give you more guidance as to the background. But also, they'll also be able to tell you, yes, well, you know, sometimes you don't realize it, but you are a bit bossy. And so whatever it is, let me evaluate it, not just myself, but also with the help of a trusted friend.
Thank you so much, Didi, for answering all these questions so elegantly and beautifully. I'm sure all the participants have got all their answers now. So with this, I would now like to invite Sister Claudia. You very well know her, Didi Jayanti. She's from Vancouver. And Sister Claudia to propose a vote of thanks for Didi. Over to you, Sister Claudia.
Om Shanti, Sister Jayanti. It's a pleasure to be here, to have here in Vancouver and talking to all over the world. So you are the one that I took the Raj Yoga course. I never forget. I went to the lecture with you and I went back to Brazil and I was thinking about that lecture all the time. I still today, I see myself after 27 years back in the same place, listen to you. And I can tell you, you are such a nice soul that anytime that I need your help or some reason we met, we didn't have that wall. It was just like meeting a friend. So I'm sure that many people got lots from you today, and including myself too. So thank you very much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Sister Claudia, for proposing the vote of thanks. And in the next 10 minutes, I'll just take a few minutes and do the announcements, Didi, for the next talks. And then we'll go in the meditation mode. So we finish off with the meditative mode. So I'll just share the screen and make a few announcements. So as you know that all of us, after the fortnightly Values for Life series episode, we then come on to the mini workshop. So we have Brother Yogesh, who also was there with us. All of you know yesterday, we did it on gratitude. So he's again there with us next Saturday. The times have changed just to accommodate the Canadian West Coast timings. And so many people gain advantage of his workshop and his sharings. So it's from 9 to 11 India time, Saturday 8th May, and the Friday prior evening is Canadian West Coast time. We'll be sending you the emails and WhatsApp messages as well. And continuing with the next episode, it's fortnightly. So we'll be doing it after 15 days, 16th May. And the value is happiness, Khushi. And we have with us our very own Meera Didi from Malaysia. She had covered in the past as well a talk. So she'll be there again with us. So again, hold on to, and the time, remember, is slightly, because she'll be joining us from Malaysia, which is 2.5 hours ahead of India. So we are just slightly preponing the time. It will be 7 p.m. India time. We'll also send you again the invitation soon. And for more information on all such value related talks and workshops, you can please feel free to visit our website, which is www.vihasa.in, and also the Vancouver website of brahmakumaris.ca. And you can email us on vihasaindia@gmail.com. So with this, I'll just stop sharing and over to Sister Jayanti for the last 10 minutes of meditation on humility.
I'll speak out my own thoughts as we begin, so we all move together in the same direction. But then beyond that, there'll be some period of silence, and then we'll close with again a few words.
Thank you.
Going within, I visualize the tiny, infinitesimal seed. Oh. And in this awareness of soul, I connect with my original qualities. The peace, the love, the truth, the purity, and the joy. In my perfect state, all these qualities are absolutely in balance with each other. Connecting these qualities within myself, I realize that I am an instrument, a child of God, and an instrument to share all these teachings across the globe. And as I connect with the divine, I experience the unlimited ocean of these attributes. I feel these qualities reach out into the world, staying in this awareness of my eternal form, experiencing within varieties of costumes, these qualities are shared by God freely. And whichever soul wishes to tap into the reservoir of these qualities, God's light, God's love touches the hearts of souls everywhere. God's qualities touch the hearts of humans, God's qualities also touch human intellects. God, the purifier, the transformer, awakens the soul and reminds me that he is just one thought away. God, with his love, uplifts each one and transforms each one. God's qualities transform the world. My own transformation happens, and the transformation of the world happens, both together, side by side. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much, Didi, for the beautiful experience and also taking out this 1.5 hours for us despite your busy schedule. Thank you. Shanti.
Om Shanti.